Good day and welcome to Quilting with Don, Episode 4, Making the Bargello. For those of you just tuning in, I am making a Bargello quilt themed on Lord of the Rings, and specifically the Eye of Sauron. Here's what it's going to look like, give or take, given this graphic. Here's the fabrics I'm going to use. And what I'm doing is following an excellent pattern and instructions in the book by Elaine Wright, I finally get her name right the first time, called More Twist and Turn Bargello Quilts. What I'm also using, as I explained, I think it was in episode 2, I made a worksheet to show exactly, and here it is, how I'm going to work the strip sets efficiently, so I'm not wasting fabric. I also made these two fabric maps. So if at any point I get somehow lose track and get lost, I know what the order of the fabric should be in case somehow I get the colors mixed up in a given strip. So that's it. Now before I go any farther, I thought I'd show you something that I actually filmed during episode 3, but I forgot to show you. I've been having trouble in the last couple strips with tension. It's been wonky and I haven't been able to figure out why. And Carolyn came up to have a look, and then she pulled off the cover of the sewing machine, and you'll see in here what she saw. And in fact, it gets worse. So it's covered in lint, which I've obviously never cleaned, and if you pull this little thing out here, you see, oh my God, look at that. So that might be why we're having tension problems. There's too much built up gunk, so obviously requires a remediation. Okay, Carolyn has cleaned this. I watched. She knows what she's doing. See the difference? Huge. So, I don't know if you're as surprised and amazed as I was how much stuff was in that machine, but wow. Here is now a graphic of how you build a strip from the pattern, a vertical row, out of the strip sets. This first row is 2 inches wide, for example, and is row number 1 in the pattern. So you take the first blue strip set and you cut a couple strips. The first one, you are going to separate into pieces and use most of it. You use colors 1 through 10 and colors 13 through 20. Colors 11 and 12, the little gap in the middle, you put aside for use later. Then you take the second strip and you're going to use colors 15 through 20. You take the rest of that strip and you put it aside to be used later. Then what you do is you take 1 through 10 and put on top of it 13 through 20, and on top of that 15 through 20. That is the bottom half of the first row. And then because this quilt is symmetrical top and bottom, what you're going to do is do it all over again. Flip it and put it on top. You're going to lop off color number 15 and start with 16. That way there's no repetition. Now, because the quilt is also symmetrical left to right, you're going to do the same thing all over again with another total of 4 strips to build the second row, which is going to be mirrored on the very far right-hand side of the quilt. So what you just saw, you use a total of 8 2-inch rows from the strip sets. And you can see that when I was talking about leaving something for later, that is going to be used in other rows where I can. Well, it's now time to cut some fabric. I have laid out the first strip set, the first blue strip set, in the method that Eileen Wright, I think I got her name right this time, Eileen Wright shows in her book, and it's simply this. You take your strip set and you fold it half on itself so that you can cut the vertical rows up and down, but you fold a good size together. So, I'll just quickly show you here. The side where you can see the seams are here. And what you do is you line up the seams because you can feel when they're lined up and they're nested. And you true the fabric so that most, if not all, of the seams are nice and flat and nested. That means you're getting a good 90% cut. I've already lined everything up, got it nice and true, and I'm going to do my truing cut with my left hand. Then we'll cut 4 2-inch strips. This is for row 1. There we go. Here's my truing cut. Seems that the blade is nice and sharp. I'll start doing 2-inch strips. I'll do 4 of them, like I said. Alright, now I'm going to assemble the strips per the design. So, someone's sewing required. And fabric counting. Alright, update. It is now 4 o'clock. I think I started this around 10 o'clock or so with a break for lunch. It's slow going only because I'm sorting out my battle rhythm. But I've now done a total of 3 rows times 2 because each row is double. One for the left and one for the right hand side of the quilt. Ready to start sewing the rows together. You can see them behind me here, 4 rows times 2 because there's 2 of each. I took the luxury of actually trying a couple methodologies for sewing together some scraps of this very same quilt. These are each 5-piece scraps from the first few rows. The first one I did pinning every seam. The second one I did without pinning but trying to ease it in, and they worked out almost identically. So I am going to try this very first pair of rows, just using no pinning, using my fingers to align the seams up. And it's going to be the same methodology as before. Is that when the seams are lined up, you can feel them, that they feel nested, they feel smooth. If there's a bump between the 2 layers of fabric, then the seams are on top of each other instead of nested, and it doesn't feel right. I have pinned the very first top of the 2 strips together to keep to start it. Each of these strips is over 96 inches long. The math says it should be about 95 inches, 47 rows times 2 inches each after you've sewn it. But I've been sewing with scant 1/4 inches, so it's grown a little bit. So they're long. Here we go. Wish me luck. And as I say, every time you feel the seam here, you'll see when I get there, it's got to feel smooth right here. If it feels smooth and the visual says they're lined up, they're good to go. There we go. We're off to a good start. It's not starting. There we go. If the pin is in the way. Alright, let's try again. There we go. Still lined up? Yes. Stop the machine. Whenever I stop the machine, I want the needle down to hold it in place. Yeah, it's that one. These are not nested. The next 2 are not nested. They take a bit of easing. It's close, but no biscuit. It's quite a bit of easing, actually. It's going all right so far. It's going all right. Slow going. So I guess the truth will be revealed when I iron it. See how it comes out. So far, so good. I'm stopping the needle at right on the seam. Right on the seam between the 2 pieces. Done my first row as far as sewing goes, so now I'll press it, and I'll come back to you to see how I did. Alright, success. These are my first 2 pieces pieced, or my first 2 rows pieced together, and look at those seams, they're all great. I only had, for reasons I don't know yet, 1 glitch, and let me show it to you. It was right where I started. Look at these, they're bad. That's off, that's even worse. Bad, so I'm going to unsew from here. So those 4 sections and resew them. But that's 3 corners that somehow didn't line up. But the rest are good. It's now almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I booked for lunch. I think I started around 10. I'll have to verify. But I'm into the zone. I got the hang of sewing rows together. Not a single unsew after the first glitch, and I still don't know how exactly that happened. It lines up really well with that nesting technique. And I discovered one more thing that's very handy, and this little piece of wood right here. This is invaluable for helping me align the fabrics up and getting them to nest, especially when I have to move the bottom fabric up a bit while holding the top one down, or holding it in place. That allows me to just nest them nicely. So that was cool. No pinning. The slog continues. I've done 8 rows total out of 69. And I've done 6 seams out of 68. So you can see how this is coming along. Quick update. Here I have now finished, as you may recognize behind me here, 12 rows times 2. So 12 vertical rows for the left, 12 vertical rows for the right. It's slow going, but it's slowly getting quicker for me. I spent 6 or 7 hours 2 days ago, another 7 hours yesterday. We worked at it just an hour today, without diving this morning. In fact, here's a wee video of some of the things I saw this morning. Little guy on the right is called a decorated war bonnet. They are so cute and quite rare. This is at Madrona Point. And one of these guys, this is a painted greenling. Also a little skittish, very rare. I can get this close to him. It was great. Overall, what have I gotten better at? Gotten way better at lining up the squares. I was pretty good at it before, where you're getting the 4 points, right? The 4 corners. Because I want this to look stunning. Also, I want it to look technically stunning, if you will. Say, this guy lined up his fabric. I know. I have time to do it. Why did I do it right the first time? Or the second time. Oh, let me show you a picture I took this morning of Carolyn and Robert and Whiskers. That's a mouthful. Whiskers and Wobbit are buds now. They're getting along really well, and they both had to be with Carolyn while she was trying to work on some sewing. This is the quilting wall with stuff draped over the top. You can see the left side of the pattern, the strips still to be used that are leftovers from previous rows, and the right side of the pattern. So you can just start to see the eye forming at the top there. It's cool, it's coming along. Okay, it's now probably been about a week of straight assembling, and I'm not done yet. I have now assembled rows 1 through 24 symmetrically. And now you can start to see what the eye is starting to shape up as. It's pretty cool. So the eye, I'm into the eye now. But I thought I'd point out 2 things that Carolyn noticed in the last few days. It says, Don, I think I'm going to have to start calling you a quilter, which I will take as very high praise. The first one is, for the last 2 or 3 days, I've been starting my morning off in my dressing gown, in my bathrobe, sewing. I was so keen to get at it, I didn't even wait to get cleaned up and get dressed. And the other thing is, I just finished my first cone of thread. Now, full disclosure, it wasn't quite full when I started, but still, I have gone through a lot of thread. In fact, went online today, actually Carolyn went online today, and I said, Carolyn, I'm buying you more thread. Fair is fair. As I'm going along here, I'm now working on rows 29 through 32. And I'm getting really good at this nesting thing, so I thought I'd walk you through how I do it. So what I do first of all is, when I'm doing a pair of strips, and I've already assembled them here, is I do a quick pressing on the flaps to make sure the flaps are all pointing flat, or all lying flat, and pointing in the right direction. And then just to get me going, I pin the first 2 seams, the first 2 joints, if you will. But after that, it's just, and I'll show you how I do it. So, also with this machine, I found that every time I start, it's good to have a starter piece of fabric. Otherwise, sometimes it binds. So it's this, it's all good. So I'm just going to start the first ones, and I like to have the needle down. There we go. Don't sew powered over the needle or the pin. Carolyn doesn't like that. There we go. 1 pin done. Boink. Okay, so now here's where the magic starts. I take my handy little stick here, and you'll see that it's going to alternate. Sometimes flaps are up, sometimes they're down. This first one, the top flap is down, which means the bottom flap is up. So all I have to do is nest them. So I'm just moving the bottom one forward a bit, and then I'm going to reach in and I'm going to pull on it, just so that they snug up. And you can feel it with the finger right here. You can feel that they're nice and flush, and it's good to go. So then I take the stick and I hold it. and I feed it through. Just like that, and I sew up to this seam. Then the next one, top flap is forward, bottom flap is back. So you just have to move it up forward just a bit, and then I've got my hand on the top, I'm snugging it in. I just snugged it in, and I can feel that it's flush. And you repeat. Sometimes you don't have to move it much, like this one looks pretty good. Snug it in, and go. Snug it in by moving it up, snug it back. Nope, see, I snugged it too much that time. You can feel it when it catches, there. So you can see that there's a bit of a hump here, and that's fine, that's what the stick is for. It helps it just feed through better. Just like that. It's a repetitive process. It's nothing fancier than that. And that's it. Takes now about 10 minutes. I did a technical dummy thing. I forgot to turn the microphone on, so I had actually talked at the beginning of this little thing here, what you see me doing here, which is sewing. Well, I'm going to tell you now. I'm sewing the last row of the quilt. You're asking yourself, why is there nothing behind on? Well, it's because it's on my lap and it's now on the table. I had done all the other rows, cut all the strips, and ended up with 2 large panels, each over 4 foot wide. And now I'm sewing these 2 panels together with the last seam to be sewn in this Bargello topped Eye of Sauron quilt. And then I'll do the big reveal once I finish sewing, I'm happy with it, and I've pressed it. So stay tuned. I'll just keep sewing. Yeah, so hey, I don't think I turned the microphone on. Well, it's on now. And I'm coming to the end here. The last 2 inches of the Eye of Sauron. Needle up. And that's it. Ta-da! And it is done. The top is sewn. Eye of Sauron, Bargello quilt. Isn't this gorgeous? I'll stand back a bit so you can take it all in. I love it. This is a win. With the pupil and the yellows through reds, just like I planned. The blue on the outside. This quilt is stunning in my opinion. I'm really, really happy the way it came out. It was, I did a quick bit of math. Over 3,200 little squares in this quilt. Because that's 47 tall by 69 wide. So that's 3243 to be precise. I have been working on this non-stop every day for the last 11, 12 days. Done. This is actually one of my favorite of all whiskeys of all time. This Glenmorangie Signet. I got this while we were in Europe. Much better economically priced than if you were to buy this now. This is about a $300 bottle of whiskey. Oh joy. But it is worth it. It's so good. Glenmorangie Signet. It's angel's kisses. So I'm going to toast you for having watched me get this far. And I'm going to toast the quilt for having it get this far. I mean, it's a top. Hasn't been quilted yet. So, once more. Aha. So you can see the eye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Quilting with Don Bargello, the Eye of Sauron. Next is I'm going to figure out how to actually quilt it, and if and how I'm going to put a border on it. Not sure yet, but that's next. So, happy quilting, keep on sewing. Remember, don't drink and sew. Never gets old. Cheers.